Wow, I went live at 4 in the morning. Bit of a rarity, but I have nothing to do. But anyways, okay. So I think it's time we have a conversation about Michigan. I think it's time. Let's talk about Michigan. Michigan, based on how every single team has looked in college football this year, Michigan is the best team in the country. Michigan looks like the best team in the country, like top to bottom. JJ McCarthy has not played a fourth quarter snap, if I'm not mistaken, at all this year. Michigan's defense is number one, if I'm not mistaken. They have scored big. Now that Harbaugh is back, they're just rolling. Michigan is flat out just rolling. Harbaugh may not be a good recruiter. By the way, Michigan, thank you for Andrew Anthony. Andrew Anthony, dog. If Michigan stud Andrew Anthony, good God, Andrew Anthony, Roman Wilson, their tight ends are good. But Michigan, like JJ McCarthy is looking like a Heisman Trophy candidate quarterback. He's looking like a top 5 for the Heisman this year. Blake Corum, 13 touchdowns, I think, on the year. Donovan Edwards, he's explosive, but I don't know what they're going to do with him. The receiving room is they can throw it now. This Michigan team is significantly better than last year's team. Significantly. Like Michigan, granted, their schedule has not been the best so far. It has not been the best schedule in college football. If you look at them top to bottom, there is not a team in the country better than Michigan. You can say Georgia, the dogs, all that, dogs. You can say dogs till they lose. Thing is, the way Georgia's been playing this year, they're 100% slipping up. And Brock Bowers is hurt. So they lost the best pass catcher in college football in Brock Bowers for like 3 to 6 weeks. He's going to miss Florida. They'll probably win that game. He's going to miss... I don't know who else they play. I know they play Ole Miss and Tennessee. In fact, they get Tennessee and Neyland, and you know that place is going to be rocking for that game. That Georgia might lose to Tennessee if they're not careful, but I do think they win that game. It's Ole Miss that they couldn't lose, even though it is in Athens. Ole Miss can score. Ole Miss can put points on the board. But yeah, Michigan, I don't see them slipping. Purdue is awful. Granted, Purdue can just pull something out of their ass and just somehow find a way. But they're not doing it against Michigan. Penn State, I know Drew Allen looked awful. I think they could give Michigan a fight, although I think Michigan wins in the end because it's in Happy Valley. They're going to boat race Ohio State. I'm not impressed with Ohio State, especially you, Kyle McCord. Kyle McCord is just, he's terrible. He's terrible. I've tried giving him the benefit of the doubt. No, he's terrible. Ryan Day's not really a good coach. Is he better than Dabo? Yeah, but his teams are so soft. He's never going to win a championship with how soft his teams are. You have to be tough up front. He's not tough up front. Notre Dame's O-line was pushing OSU's D-line around. They didn't get a sack on Sam Hartman. They didn't. And the only reason Ohio State beat Notre Dame is because of Jared Parker's play calling and Al Golden running a prevent defense on third down. They were in prime position to win that game too. Ohio State was, and they did win that game. But you don't run prevent on third down. You run normal defense or you send the house. You're playing a first-year starting quarterback. Like, Kyle McCord is not good. I think Michigan beats them badly. Michigan's going to blow out Maryland. Michigan, as Joel Klatt said it, and granted, I hate Joel Klatt because Joel Klatt is an OU hater, and I'm an OU fan. But Joel Klatt, he makes a valid point about Michigan. They're a boa constrictor. Playing Michigan is like being trapped in a room with no weapon against an angry boa constrictor. A Michigan win is inevitable, regardless if Michigan plays bad or not. The win by Michigan is inevitable. Like, Michigan is just running through people. And I think they continue it all year. Michigan is easily. This is Michigan's Big Ten to lose. And honestly, well, knowing Michigan, they're going to find a way to lose in the playoff. And by the way, I cannot wait till 2025 when OU plays Michigan. In fact, I might go to that game. I might make a trip to Norman to go to that Michigan OU game. I might do it. I might end up doing it. I don't know if I'm going to do it, though. But Michigan right now is the best team in the country. Michigan, Washington. You know Washington. I saw how you looked against ASU. You look pretty sloppy. I don't understand why they struggle with ASU or the desert. But they do. And also, there's Georgia. I can't leave the Dogs out of the top four. And then Florida State. Like, you can say all you want, Oklahoma. As an Oklahoma fan, I can't justify putting us in the top four. They're going to lose a game. It's a matter of when it's going to happen. Because we're going to lose to like a BYU or someone like that, knowing this team. Granted, last year's team would have absolutely lost to UCF. And this year's team finished the job. But that was a bad game. Like, Andrell Anthony is out for the season. That's a huge loss. Tawee Walker was suspended. This team can't run. They're predicated around the passing game, which you need to have a good running game. And, well, we don't. Like the teams ahead of us, like Washington, Michigan, Georgia, and Florida State, they have good ground games. They're balanced. And, well, Jordan Travis can run the ball well, too, which is why Jordan Travis is my front runner for the Heisman at the moment. Because what the hell, Michael Penix? I give you the praise after that Oregon win, which was phenomenal. Michael Penix Heisman, and you come out like that. Now, granted, it is one game. I do think Michael Penix will bounce back. Dillon Gabriel, I can't justify putting him at number one. Because this isn't the only – because he had a mid-game. He was pedestrian. Cincinnati, he was terrible. Cincinnati, he was flat out terrible. SMU, he was flat out terrible. Like, he's had some bad games. He's had some really bad games, and it makes me scratch my head. Like, Cincinnati was awful. Defense was the reason we beat Cincinnati. SMU game was awful, but thanks to the defense. Preston Stone's a good quarterback. But yeah, I genuinely think Michigan is the best team in the country. When you look at top to bottom, they're the deepest team. You can use the schedule argument all you want. Georgia beat Vanderbilt by 17. Vanderbilt, the worst team in the SEC this year. Vanderbilt. Georgia beat them by 17. As a 31-point favorite, if I'm not mistaken. Vanderbilt covered that so easily. Granted, I'm mad that UCF covered against Oklahoma. I'm mad that they covered. I'm really mad. Georgia's let some pretty terrible opponents cover the spread on them. Carson Beck and Mike Bobo look terrible. And now Brock Bowers is out. We will see what Carson Beck is made of coming up soon. We will see what Carson Beck is made of. Now, OU on the road against Kansas. I am a little scared of that game because, granted, Jalen Daniels, if Jason Bean starts, then I won't be scared because he's terrible. But back to Georgia. Auburn is pathetic. They almost lost to Cal, who was really, really bad. Cal honestly might be worse than ASU because Cal is just awful. Cal is awful. And Georgia almost lost to Auburn. Like, come on. Georgia's not repeating. It's either going to be Michigan, Washington, or Florida State. Georgia's not repeating. They have too many holes this year. Mike Bobo is one of them. Carson Beck is another. Brock Bowers is. They need Brock. We know they need Brock because without Brock Bowers, they lose that Auburn game. That is embarrassing. Carson Beck is just terrible, and they should have lost to South Carolina. They beat a pretty bad South Carolina team by 10. That's bad. South Carolina. I have a feeling they could lose to Missouri because Missouri can put points on the board. They just can't get a stop on Georgia. Missouri has a chance in that game. Do I think Missouri wins? No. Absolutely not. But they have a chance in that game. They can put points on the board. Luther Burden is the best receiver in the SEC. The only ones you could argue that are better than him are Malik Neighbors from LSU, Ladd McConkey from Georgia, and Wilbur McCoy's hurt, and Xavier Legette from South Carolina. Xavier Legette is a dude. Luther Burden is a grown man. People forget how good Luther Burden actually is. Oh, and by the way, to any Ohio State fans that are going to be like, oh, no, we're going to beat Michigan. No, you're not. I've literally watched Ohio State a few times this year, and I'm like, wow, this is not a top 3 team in the country. Ohio State is not a top 3 team in the country. They're not. They don't look like a top 3 team. The only teams that really look like a top three teams are Michigan, Washington, and to some extent FSU. To some extent. It's not to a complete extent. To some extent. There's times where they've looked like the best team in the country, like against Duke, even though Riley Leonard did get hurt again. Mike Elko, you're an actual idiot. Why are you throwing Leonard out there again? I would rather lose 45-7 and have my quarterback healthy than lose 38-20 and lose my quarterback gets injured again. I don't think Duke is beating Louisville or Carolina without Riley Leonard. Without Leonard. If Leonard played, they can beat one of them. But if he's not playing, they're losing both. I mean, Carolina did lose to Virginia, but I still think Carolina is the second best team in the ACC behind Florida State. But Florida State at times looks like a disaster, but at times they look really good. A Duke game. But anyways, Georgia's not look like that elite team that we all think they are. Granted, Georgia's still gonna find a way to pull off national championship. They're gonna find some stupid way, but I feel like this year they're just weak. They're just very weak this year. The Dogs look very, very weak. Like, if you watch Georgia games, they really look weak. The SEC in general this year, it looks very weak. And how fitting. In its final year, the Pac-12 is the best Power 5 conference. For years, it was one of the worst conferences. And it was the worst conference for years. Now it's the best. Utah's looking good, although I do think they are absolutely screwed. They got to play Oregon and they got to play Washington without Cam Rising. Yeah, I know they just beat USC, but Washington and Oregon are significantly better than USC. Utah is not that good of a football team. Yeah, they're 5-1. Yeah, they beat USC. I'll give them that, but they're not beating Oregon. And I think Oregon's actually probably going to win that conference now. I don't think Washington's going to beat them twice. Washington's good. Make no mistake. They're the favorite in the Pac-12, and they're probably not going to lose a game. If they do slip up, it's going to be in Corvallis. Oregon State is going on the road in Corvallis is not going to be easy. I don't think Oregon State has a chance of beating Oregon. Now, if Oregon State wins that game, feel free to old takes expose me. Feel free to do so because I will have deserved it. I will have deserved it. But I digress. I don't think Oregon State is going to have a chance in Autzen. Oregon State's not a bad team. I actually think they're very good. It's just a game in Autzen. Oregon State got lucky. It was in Corvallis last year, and it was late season Oregon. Now, it is late season Oregon, but the game's in Autzen. It's not in Corvallis. Oregon hardly ever loses a late season game at home. They hardly ever lose at home. Home period. They have one home loss since 2019, and it was last season's game against Washington because their losses in last year, the Oregon State game was on the road, and the Georgia game was a neutral site. The Stanford game was on the road. The Utah game was on the road, and also the Utah game was a neutral site, and they got beat by Caleb Williams and the Oklahoma Sooners when Caleb Williams was actually here. Then he left. 2020 they lost to Corvallis. 2019 they lost on neutral site at Auburn, and they lost to who did they lose to that year? Oh, they lost to ASU. I forgot they lost to ASU. And oh god, they got to go to ASU this year. They lose another game. I guarantee you, it's gonna be that. That's gonna be the game that they lose. If they do lose another game, I guarantee you. I got off topic a little bit, but this was supposed to be about Michigan. But like I'm telling y'all, if Oregon loses again, that's gonna be the game. That will be the game. Late season Oregon in the desert. And ASU loves to beat somebody. ASU loves beating someone. I can see them winning that game for some stupid reason. Then I do think Oregon puts a beat down on Utah because, well, I don't think Bryson Barnes is beating Oregon. I don't. Oregon can play defense. That didn't show against Washington, but they can play defense. Their offense is pretty good. One of the best offenses in the country with Bo Nix. Bo Nix could win the Heisman. Now, if they didn't lose to Washington and Bo Nix won that game, that's your Heisman winner. Because Bo Nix had an efficient game against Wazoo. And Wazoo's not a bad team, even though they got bludgeoned by Arizona. Arizona's not bad. And then they lost to UCLA, who is pretty solid. By the way, Colorado, that's how you close out a game against Stanford. Look at what UCLA did. Ash, no disrespect, but you my dog, but Stanford's horrible. And I understand, they're horrible, but like Colorado, that's how you close out a game against Stanford. That's how you shut down Alec Iomaner. By the way, Travis Hunter's overrated. Travis Hunter got cooked by Alec Iomaner. He got cooked by him. Travis Hunter should not be playing that two-way game. He should not. Shedeur Sanders blew that game. Looks like Bama got it together. Michigan is Michigan looks like the best team. Because you guys know my opinion on Michigan. I can't stand them. But they look like the best team. Anyways, I'm gonna clock out. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.